right, Dan, in 2021, we go all the way back. We were doing the show, I believe, in 2021. There were 7 NFL coaches hired. It was a huge firing season. 7 is a little above average. Usually it's about 5 or, max 6 coaches that get changed over. Let me go through this list for you right now. You ready for this? Urban Meyer. Meyer was fired after 6 games. David Culley, I don't even know who that is, was fired after 1 year.
I believe that was
Arizona,
Texas. I believe that was the Texans coach.
Right. Yeah, and then he was replaced by Lovey.
Okay.
And then, Arthur Smith, he had a solid run, 3 years, fired. Brandon Staley, Chargers, 3 years, fired. Robert Saleh, 3 and a little over a quarter of a year now, fired. Nick Sirianni, firmly on the hot seat. I think we all would agree.
Yeah.
Like, he is one of those guys we talk about, like, his job is open. And then one other guy was hired that cycle. Do you remember who? Someone who
Matt Eberflus?
No, someone who they mocked at the opening press conference. Someone that also
Dan Campbell. That was
yes,
Dan Campbell. Yeah,
Dan Campbell. And remember, if you go back to that, Dan Campbell was the one who was mocked. This is a terrible hire. The bite the kneecaps.
Him and Sirianni, because Sirianni had a really bad opening press conference.
Too. Yeah. And Dan Campbell's 25-9 in his last 34 games.
There you go.
Shout out to Dan.
Fun. Absolutely. That's always interesting to look back at the head coaching hires from just recent years, because you see how much turnover there is in the league. 30%, turnover after just a few years, probably even higher than that.
We do that a lot with quarterbacks and draft classes, right? So it's kind of fun to do that with the coach classes as well.
Definitely. Well, we've certainly got, you alluded to it a little bit there, we've got a lot to get to from week 5 here, including some side eyes, some firings, and some new starting quarterbacks. Let's get to it.
All right, dig side eye is elite.
Dude,
that's elite.
It's too good. Too good. I got to give a shout out to my cousin Brendan, obviously friend of the show. He told me, "Hey man, this better be the thumbnail for this upcoming episode." I said, "Absolutely, I will for sure put that in here." Let's start off with the big news that dropped earlier this afternoon that you alluded to at the beginning there. Robert Saleh out as head coach of the New York Jets after 3 seasons with the team, 20-36 record, no playoff appearances during that time, and defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich will be taking over as interim coach for the rest of the season. What do we make of the Jets firing Saleh at this point of the year? They're 2-3, and obviously having some up and downs already, and up and downs throughout his entire tenure. But I also got to say, the guy really didn't have much to work with for the majority of his time here.
I think the thing that to me is most interesting, right, is not the decision itself. It's how the decision has been handled and the reaction since the decision. Dan, we know now that he was blindsided by this. We know now that there was so much frustration that apparently he didn't get to say goodbye to the team, address the team, and was escorted out by security. And
really, I didn't see that, but that's crazy.
Escorted out. That was Jay Glazer reporting that. Escorted out by security. And we now know that Woody Johnson, the Jets owner, has released a statement saying he was fired because, quote, expectations and not meeting expectations. I'll say this.
So the interim coach is going to change that.
Yeah. You and I are very different football fans because you follow an organization that is, let's be honest, probably the most consistent and well-run, just like historically great football operation top down in Pittsburgh. Yes, would you like it to lead to more Super Bowl wins recently? Sure. But this organization is top notch. It's first class. It treats everyone with respect. They made Le'Veon Bell and Brown and all the killer bees work, and we saw how crazy now that was looking back on it. The Jets are more akin to my Chicago Bears, where they are historically kind of inept. especially in the modern Super Bowl era, right? I will say
Yeah.
this, though. As bad as my team is at putting competent football players on the field and football plans and football teams and football coaches and football concepts, my team is run with class, and my team is run from a family that is certainly doesn't meddle. That's the word I'm looking
Yeah.
for. Woody Johnson is one of the richest owners in the league. Johnson and Johnson. He's a meddler, and this is, if I was a Jets fan, I'd be beyond ticked today with how this was all handled. Now that it's coming out, there's no reason to fire Robert
That's
Saleh
fair.
other than Aaron Rodgers didn't want Robert Saleh to be the coach anymore. If Aaron Rodgers wanted Robert Saleh to be the head coach currently and wanted to keep the status quo and try to keep building, he would have had veto power on this. Woody Johnson would not have fired Aaron Rodgers without some sort of blessing or at least an okay. Like maybe Aaron said, you
Yeah.
know, I don't love it, but sure, I support you. But if Aaron would have said, Woody, no, we're not firing a coach mid-season. This only is going to lead to chaos. Then it wouldn't have happened. And so Aaron Rodgers will play dumb on McAfee this week. He'll do the political speak. He's really good at political speak, with his maybe future. So that's my instant reaction. I feel bad for Robert Saleh. He certainly did not deserve this, and he's certainly not the problem in the New York Jets. The problem starts and has been the problem at the top. Look at what the Washington Commanders have done this year. You remove the owner, you cut the snake off at the head with a bad run organization, and look at how seemingly fantastic they are right now at heading in the right direction. That's the stench of the New York Jets right now. Bad ownership and an uncontrolled football operation that's led by an Aaron Rodgers who's not playing good football right now.
Yeah, it's never easy when somebody loses their job, but I also find it kind of hard to imagine that Robert Saleh is not almost relieved, especially after the initial wave of the shock wears off.
Yeah.
Not only were you, employed by a very unstable and volatile organization, that's always difficult to have to work in those environments. But on top of that, you could see over the years, I mean, his control whatever control he did have when he first got the job has continued to dissipate year after year to the point where this year it was pretty clear, and really last year when they acquired Aaron, that this was not Robert Saleh's team.
No.
This is Woody Johnson's team. This is the organization's team of how they wanted. And at the end of the day, this is Aaron Rodgers' team. This is whatever they wanted to do when they signed the dotted line with Aaron Rodgers was going to run through whatever Aaron wanted. And the reason that is a terrible decision, beyond the fact that, putting everything in the hands of a player in general is not a smart idea. We've seen it with LeBron. LeBron's always not the best chooser of fellow teammates, right?
Westbrook.
Yeah. I think Tom Brady was one of those rare ones where he actually picked good teammates, and it's probably because just he worked them well. But there's reasons why you have people in leadership positions who make those decisions. But anyway, it was a bad decision not only from that perspective, but from the perspective of the fact that Aaron Rodgers is 40 plus years old and is not going to be with this organization for more than, you would say, 2 years, 3 years at the very tops. And now you're letting him build up this mountain that you're going to be stuck with when he's long gone. So Robert Saleh, I think probably did the best with whatever he was given in terms of what he was allowed to do. He obviously coached up the defense well. They had good personnel come in throughout that defense over the last few years, has built it into one of the best units in the league. Obviously, that unit has underperformed at time this year, too. I don't want to say that this is all on the offensive breakdown, but it's also pretty clear, Mark. I don't think Robert Saleh made that Nathaniel Hackett hire, and it's pretty clear that he's just a very poor offensive coordinator. I mean, he was tied to Matt LaFleur, and we see now that it was largely Matt LaFleur's offense that was being run. So yeah, Aaron Rodgers might like the person. He might be a good coach and a fun guy to be around, but he's probably one of the worst offensive coordinators in the league. And so there's a lot of problems you got to deal with in the New York Jets organization, the least of which, to your point, is Robert Saleh. So
yeah, I have a final last point on this, and then I know we got a lot to get to. We'll move on. I'll just say this: when Peyton Manning went to Denver, he didn't bring an offensive coordinator. He didn't bring Jeff Saturday with him. He didn't bring Reggie Wayne with him. And when Tom Brady went to Tampa, truthfully, what he did was just get Gronk to unretire, which we all thought Gronk retiring was early anyways. And Gronk still had football left in him. I just think Gronk, like Tom, needed to get out of New England, right? And needed to experience life beyond New England. What Aaron has done is stranglehold a poorly run organization in a similar vein that Deshaun Watson put a stranglehold on a poorly run organization in Cleveland, right? I mean, these are eerily similar situations in the sense that bad franchises making really desperate moves. Now, to the Jets, one piece
but
of credit,
Deshaun's not demanding things. Aaron demands things.
Yeah, but he demanded a fully guaranteed contract because of his legal troubles, right?
That part for sure. Yeah.
And so Aaron, to the Jets, the point I was trying to make was to the Jets' credit, the one thing they have going for them is when they signed Aaron Rodgers, they didn't know he's going to tear his Achilles, right? So now they're on top of it, though. You're dealing with a player who's just a really bad injury for a really old player. And you would think it would empower the organization more, but it seems like it's empowered Aaron Rodgers more. And maybe it's the media blitz he did all last year, every week going on McAfee saying, I'm coming back. Being superhuman is just bled into Woody Johnson's brain. Dan, my little brother Phil, who's made appearances on this show, played college football, diehard Bears fan like me, he said the Bears should sign Robert Saleh right now as a defensive assistant, right? Because the Bears don't have actually a defensive coordinator because of Eberflus. And it's like, hey, bring a smart mind into your organization, right? Like a guy who's now just going to be out looking for work. I said, I'd love that. But I said, if Robert Saleh was really smart, he would go work for free for the Buffalo Bills for the next 6 days until they play on Monday Night Football against the Jets and just absolutely ream the New York Jets. I would love that story. I'd be so petty, it'd be so much fun.
That would be pretty hilarious.
We'll see what happens. I'm not excited to have to talk about the Jets coaching search. It sounds exhausting. So hopefully we won't have to, we'll just try to ignore it as much as we can for the remainder of the year.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's not going to be too much fun. And we'll see. Maybe they end up deciding to hire the interim head coach Jeff Ulbrich at the end of the day, and then it might be it might be even more humor to insert into the mix. One last thing I will say about the Jets situation is I don't know if this has happened before, Mark, but I'm sure it has. If I were the Jets, I wouldn't have. If you're making this decision to fire Robert Saleh, I would have instantly put out feelers to try and be the first to get Mike Vrabel and or Bill Belichick that's out on the market and see if they would come mid-season
and take the job,
take over. Because if you wait until the offseason, now you're going to be competing with several suitors. Right now, you're the only game in town. Yep. And I wonder if that paycheck would be, enticing to someone. Now, I think Vrabel is probably overall a better coach than Robert Saleh, but I could see a lot of people also drawing a lot of comparisons to that situation and feeling like it might be more of a lateral move. But I would try and roll the dice as if I felt strongly about a candidate that's out there right now.
My response to that would be go watch Nick Wright's rant about the Jets head coaching job and what a good opening it is. It's a phenomenal rant he did on his show today. He did it on Colin Cowherd as well. I 100% agree with his rant, basically saying the Jets aren't a good job, even if they're the only job that's open. Right?
Yeah, that much is true.
And let's be honest, you're looking at a head coaching openings for some teams coming up this year that it's like, oh, that could be really interesting. If Buffalo,
but that even adds more to my point, though.
Well,
you want to put the job out there now when you're the only job on the market.
I would hang up the phone. I'd say, listen, I'm enjoying doing my podcasting. If I'm Bill, I'd say, have you seen my girlfriend? I'm enjoying my time right now. And if I was Vrabel, I'd be like, I legally can't live in New York, so sorry, I can't do that.
Yeah, I definitely don't think Bill would have taken the job, but I don't know. Maybe Vrabel would
I want a
entertain it.
Mike
But yeah,
McCarthy
nonetheless,
reunion. I want Mike McCarthy to get fired in Dallas, and I want a Mike
oh,
McCarthy
there you go.
reunion with Rodgers in New York.
That'd be exciting. All right, let's get to our best wins, worst losses of the week. We start every show with this season.
Yeah.
Mark, best win.
I'm going all the way back to Thursday night football.
All right.
And you know me, I'm still a believer. I still think the Bucs are going to win the division. But the Falcons, listen, getting a win over the Bucs like that is, I think, really important for two reasons. They're now on a 2-game win streak, and they just beat the Saints and the Bucs. Their next game, Dan, is the Panthers. So they could go 3-0 early in the season, within 6 weeks, 3-0 in division. Obviously, we expect them now to handle the Panthers, especially the Panthers kind of turn back into a pumpkin. We'll talk about that a little bit later on in the show. And so I have to say the Falcons starting off week 5 the way they did, putting up huge points, it really set the tone for the weekend. It was a big scoring weekend. Scoring went through the roof this
finally.
weekend. And yeah, finally, right? And listen, is it a sustainable win for the Falcons? No, not at all. It's not sustainable. You can't ask Kirk to throw 50-plus times for 500 yards. They need to run the football. They need to be able to stop, teams from scoring 30 points in their own building. And so it's not sustainable, but it was a huge win as far as the way a really tight division is going to shake out. It now puts a ton of pressure on the Bucs to make sure they hold home court when they get the Falcons later on in the season. And so to me, just the importance of that win, and with the Panthers game coming up, that is a win to me. We're going to look back and be like, man, the Bucs and the Falcons have the same record, or maybe the Falcons won one more game than the Bucs. God, they stole that division. We're going to look back at week 5 in a shootout. The Bucs, to me, played better than them for the majority of the game. Falcons survived, found a way to win. And to me, that standing wise, we can already start talking about that. A huge win for them.
Few teams, I'd say, too, have, come into their own as the season's gone on, as well as the Falcons have. They have, started to find their identity a little bit better and playing more cohesively on offense, especially. So yeah, putting up 36 points against the Bucs, your rival, going to 3-2 on the season. That's pretty good. For me, Mark, the best win goes to the AFC South. The Houston Texans defeating the Buffalo Bills 23-20. A couple candidates I could have went with this week, as is for most weeks. We have a difficulty finding the best win. But to me, the Texans getting this win in the fashion they did separated them for me. CJ Stroud played fantastic. He did have the one interception and only one passing touchdown. But I think he really came into form this year, because it seemed a little bit sluggish. I guess you could say he was playing well this year. It was just we weren't getting the fireworks, and they only put up 23 points in this game. But he spread the ball to 8 different receivers this game, showed kind of the wealth of options that they have at their disposal. I thought CJ Stroud navigated that well. And overall, the Texans defense holding Josh Allen to what had to be a career worst passer rating, 9 for 30 in the passing game, was just.
Now remember his rookie year. His rookie year, he had some stinkers.
Fair enough, but I mean, a sub 30%. That's pretty brutal. I'd have to, at least for 30 pass attempts. I don't know if Josh Allen has had that poor of a completion percentage in his time. Yeah, just not much working at all. Only 9 catches spread out between that group of receivers. And they weren't getting too much done on the ground either. So credit to the Houston defense. It was a close game. We expected it to be. It's the Buffalo Bills after all. But for the Texans to get this win at home in relatively, not convincing fashion, but I guess in, coming out to that early 14-3 lead and then staying the course. I was impressed. I thought it was a big win for them. They go to 4-1, really helps separate themselves in the AFC South, especially with this week. We saw the Jacksonville Jaguars get their first win, but Texans are going to keep that pace and keep putting that pressure on for that division crown.
It's a great choice. It probably was my second choice as far as win of the week. And I'll say this, Dan, to me, what stands out is the fact that the Texans were 3-1 going into this game, but their wins were against the Colts, the Bears, and the Jags. Yeah. Not exactly a murderer's row of like great teams. And their loss was against the Vikings, and they got killed by the Vikings. So for them to beat what we think of as a rival near the top of the AFC in the Bills at home and take care of business, that's huge, because that's one of those games where if you circled at the beginning of the year, you'd say, I really want to win that game, but I wouldn't be shocked if we lost that game. So for them to get a win there, improve to 4-1, that's a big resume building win for this version of the Houston Texans. Nico Collins' injury is concerning for them going forward, because him and CJ Stroud might be the hottest QB wide receiver duo right now in the NFL. Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow might have something to say about
like
that.
A word.
They might have something to say about that, but they're in the conversation, right? And so we'll see what losing Nico Collins will do. At least, again, they've got themselves a buffer. If they lose a game or two over the next couple because they don't have Nico, they've created a buffer. I'll say this about the Bills.
And they have a buffer in Tank Dell, who really hasn't had the opportunities in the offense this year, and maybe now he'll have a chance to flourish.
Yeah, for sure. It's a good point. And I'll say this about the Bills, because this is our chance to talk about this game. Listen, Josh played bad. You're going to have a stinker, right? I mean, we're spending so much time focusing on like, oh my God, did Jaden play well again? Did Caleb play well again? Is Drake May going to play well now? You know, you focus a lot on those rookies because it's like small sample size. You forget that, hey, twice a year in a long season, even the best of the best, Mahomes, no touchdowns and interception this week. Josh Allen, 9 for whatever, 30-something. They're going to have stinkers, right? It's the NFL. Like, you can't be amazing every single week. I'm going to hopefully just chalk this up to a stinker for Josh Allen. He was obviously very concussed at the end of the game. He should not have been in that game.
Yeah, that was...
I think there could be some fines coming for the Bills, medical staff, and the Bills in general. That was a lapse in the system that's meant to protect players. But I will say, if you're a Bills fan, this sucks. You're 3-0. We're talking Josh Allen MVP. 2 weeks later, you lost to the Ravens and the Texans, two teams that if you want to make it to the Super Bowl, you're going to have to go through the Ravens and the Texans. Now, you could argue that's a good thing, right? Like, hey, you lose early, so you have the edge going on against them later. It's hard to beat a team twice. But it's a bad thing because you're probably now going to have to play those games on the road as opposed to at home, unless you go on a tear in division and just win more games than the other two teams. The Bills put themselves in a little bit of a hole. Great win for the Texans.
Yeah, yep, totally agree. All right, who's got the worst loss for you?
Seattle. A week ago, we were talking about, man, Seattle lost, but damn, they look good and they battled and blah, blah, blah. And then you get the Giants at home. And you didn't just lose to the Giants. They did not just lose to the Giants. Damn, the Giants dominated time of possession by over 15 minutes. They had more first downs. They had more passing first downs. They dominated the line of scrimmage. They had more rushing yards. The Giants won this football game, and they won it in convincing fashion in a tough place to play on the road at Seattle. One of the farthest trips you can make in the NFL, New York to Seattle. And Seattle, when you look at like, how do you bounce back from a loss that, again, what do we talk about? The losses that hurt the most are the ones you circle as wins before the season. That's why it was so important for the Bears to win this weekend, right? It was so important, for X, Y, and other Z's, teams to win this weekend. Seattle was really important for them to win this weekend. You circled that one as a win, Seahawks fans. I did, you did, we all did. And it was not only a loss, it was an ugly loss in which you got dominated by a worse opponent. Credit to the Giants and Brian Daboll. Man, this feels like 2 years ago, again, with the Giants, and he led the Giants to a playoff win with Daniel Jones. That's what it's starting to feel like right now. Daniel Jones played good football without Malik Nabers. Listen, we know Daniel Jones isn't the future, but it's starting to feel like Brian Daboll still is the future for this organization, and that's a really exciting thing if you're a Giants fan, because you have a good offensive line, you have an elite defensive line, and so that was a great win. But I think a more ugly loss for Seattle. Dan, they have got to turn it around. Seattle is against the 49ers Thursday Night Football, short week. After that, they have the Falcons and the Bills. So Seattle was 3-0. Now they're 3-2 with games against a pissed off, motivated Niners team that is below 500, and then a Falcons team that we just said is finding their groove, and a Bills team that is now desperate to stack some wins together. Really tough stretch ahead for Seattle. That makes this such a more even of a killer loss.
Yeah, it was a gut punch, and especially with Malik Neighbors out, you'd think, okay, Seattle's got even, that perhaps the best offensive player on the field isn't available for your opponent, and you still let them put up 29 points against you. And to your point, I mean, the way Seattle was playing, at the early portions of this season, you got to sustain that momentum whenever you can, because in this league, as we've seen here with this loss, it can go in the snap of a finger, and it's you got to swim upstream at that point to be able to get it back.
So
I'm gonna
go.
Okay, go ahead.
So you have a different loss. Okay, I'm excited.
I do have a different loss. I was debating two other games for this one, and mine, I will admit, is a pick more so because of the effects of what happened or what this says for this team moving forward than it does for the loss, because this team battled hard and almost won against a opponent that we would say was better than them in the first place. To me, it was the Bengals losing to the Ravens in overtime. I think the weight of this loss is why it gives me the worst loss. It's not the worst in terms of performance. That much is clear. The Bengals offense destroyed. I mean, it was incredible. Joe Burrow, 5 touchdowns. Jamar Chase with 9 catches, 100+ yards receiving, and a couple.
They had a 10-point lead.
And they had a lead against their division opponent, against who we could say, is a contender for the 1 seed in the AFC by season's end. That much is understandable. This loss in a vacuum makes sense and isn't, raising alarm bells. But when this loss puts you at 1-4 on the season and marks your 3rd loss against the AFC early in this year,
it's brutal.
Even if they scratch and claw, we're talking about a potential, 7 seed in the playoffs.
Tiebreakers going against them now,
and tiebreakers going against you with 3 losses in the AFC, or 1 win is against the Panthers so far this year. Pretty tough. This was just pretty a big gut punch for the Bengals, who had this game in hand, who had the chance to win it, who get to overtime, have an opportunity to kick a field goal, miss that. And then it's the Ravens doing what the Ravens do in overtime, and a big play later, and it's game over. So really, really brutal, tough loss to swallow for the Bengals, and I really think this puts them on life support for their season. At week 5, their season's on life support, and that's why I think it was the worst loss.
They need to hire Robert Saleh as their defensive coordinator tomorrow. I didn't have this as my worst loss. It was a very close second choice. And I'll say the reason I didn't have it as my worst loss is because if they would have lost this game 27-10 and the offense just struggled and looked ugly, then you're really talking about like, whoa. We've invested heavily in this offense, in Joe Burrow, and this quarterback, in this offensive head coach. We might have to blow this whole bleeping thing up, right? But what you're seeing from Cincinnati is you score 38 points at home, you should win. You absolutely should win that game 9 times out of 10, 10 times out of 10. So I don't think Zach Taylor's the problem. I don't think Joe Burrow's the problem. I know he's not. And I know that when T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, and Zach Taylor are all together, because remember, we had the question, they lost their offensive coordinator to Tennessee to be the head coach. We had the question of, is Zach Taylor Nick Sirianni, right? Is he just a CEO and doesn't really know what he's doing? No. This offense is still humming. It looks great. Joe Burrow looked amazing. So you have the right coach. You have the right quarterback and the weapons. You got to get these guys signed, or at least one of them, and keep building. What you need is an overhaul of that defense, and you need it to be cheap, young, and so you need a great coach to come on in there. I think the Bengals defensive coordinator job will be an elite opening at some point in time during the offseason. If I were the Bengals, I would make the change right now, and I'd go get Robert Saleh and say, we'll pay you a lot of money to come and coach of our defense, because I think That clearly is the problem. I also want to mention again, while we're talking about this game, Lamar Jackson, his ceiling is Patrick Mahomes. Like, the only thing that is stopping Lamar Jackson from Super Bowl victories is quite possibly right now this third greatest quarterback of all time, and quite possibly, when it's all said and done, the greatest quarterback of all time.
Yeah.
So stop the Lamar Jackson bullshit hate. Let's appreciate him the way we should appreciate Burrow and Allen as well. There are 3 dudes in the AFC, not named Patrick Mahomes, who are all-time elite, amazing players to watch that are great. Are they Hall of Famers at the end of the day? I think Lamar is basically almost guaranteed one now with 2 MVPs. Joe and Josh have obviously more resume to build. But the only thing stopping Lamar Jackson from a Super Bowl right now is Patrick Mahomes. He is insane. And a couple of the plays that he made.
Really good.
And a couple of plays that he made since he signed that big contract at the end of last, almost, a year and a half ago, going into last season, he has been an MVP and right now on MVP again. So through 5 games this season. Right now, he's playing the best football, you could argue, from the quarterback position on the planet. And he absolutely was the key to victory. He scored 41 points against a division rival on the road, was down by 10 with less than 6 minutes in the fourth quarter, and won that football game on the road against a great quarterback who threw 5 touchdown passes. That's Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
If you didn't watch the game, watch the highlights and stop hating on Lamar Jackson. The dude is absolutely a top 5 quarterback. He's absolutely now playing elite football right now.
And he did all of that without Mark Andrews being productive yet again. So it's
likely
he doesn't even need his top target.
I think likely is the top fantasy tight end in fantasy right now.
Yeah, likely he's had a couple giant weeks and that has helped his cause. But yeah, I mean he's super talented. I mean they're as long as they have Lamar Jackson, they're in good shape. I agree with you there.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to the rest of week 5, which, by the way, here's a nugget for you. First time in NFL history with 2 100-plus yard defensive touchdowns on the same day on Sunday.
Really?
Seattle's Rayshon Jenkins and Denver's Patrick Surtain both had 100-plus yard
that kid can ball
touchdowns. So there you go. Pretty cool stuff there. Also, well, actually, we'll get to this game when we talk Chiefs. I'll save that nugget there, and we'll talk Drake May as well when we get to the Patriots.
Great.
We talked about the Thursday night game, Falcons over the Bucks. Talked about the Jets, but we did not talk about the game. Anything to take here as the Vikings improved to 5-0 on the season, 23-17 win, first London game of the year, and the Jets fall to 2-3. But man, Sam Darnold getting some nice revenge here, despite not playing well. In this game, which actually made me feel better about the Vikings because he could have a stinker offensively and still get a win against a pretty talented team.
You nailed it. That's my note. I'd have one important note for each game to kind of trigger the conversation, right? And it was 50.3 quarterback rating for Sam Darnold. He was objectively not good. I didn't watch all this game. I caught most of the second half. Sleeping in on a Sunday, you kind of forgot, oh shit, there's a London game going on. Rewatched all the highlights. He did not play well, and it's really impressive that now we can say, dude, the Vikings won a game in which Sam Darnold didn't play well, and the window for practice for TJ Hawkinson, a top 7-8 tight end of the NFL, he's coming back. This Vikings team right now absolutely deserves to be thought of as a legit Super Bowl contender. And for the Jets, Aaron Rodgers was not good. He's not good. And again, it just, when you look at that game footage, it shocks you again that the Jets decided our defense and defensive head coach is the reason we're not doing well. I mean, it's just, it just goes to show you that there's one person right now who's calling the shots in that organization, and he was almost the vice president of the United States.
Yeah, right. No kidding. How about that? So close. Your Chicago Bears look pretty good. Caleb Williams starting to get into his own. 36-10 win over the Panthers. Everyone's going to say, well, yeah, they beat the Carolina Panthers.
Who cares?
Hey, some teams haven't. One team hasn't. And and you won by 26. It wasn't just a win. It was
That's
a
exactly right.
win.
That's exactly right. My note for the Chicago Bears, again, they did what they were expected to do. Quality teams destroy bad teams at home. The Bears were at home, and they destroyed a bad team. If this game would have been close, I'd be here very frustrated. Even if they would have won a close game, I'd be pumped they won, but I would be sitting here ready to rip them apart. Yeah, if you want to pick apart Caleb's performance, you could say there's 1 or 2, 3 throws, that first one to Keenan Allen, that he'd like to have back, but no turnovers. Again, we said it last week, the Bears have a formula for winning. At home, no turnovers, and winning the turnover battle. Listen, they ran the football 39 times, 128 yards, 3 touchdowns, and I have to give Matt Eberflus his flowers. Matt Eberflus's defense over the last 10 games going into last season. So basically, since they got Montez Sweat, 21 points or fewer. 21 points or fewer. That is, listen, if there's one thing I can say right now I know about the Chicago Bears, I know that Matt Eberflus can coach defense. Can he coach a team to a Super Bowl? I don't know. He can't. He doesn't know how to use his challenge flags, but he can coach defense. Gervon Dexter is a stud. Second-year player out of Florida, second-round draft pick. He is maybe one of the top 3 interior offensive linemen in the NFL right now, compiling sacks. The linebackers are playing incredible. The secondary is maybe the best secondary in football. And that is all because of Matt Eberflus. He's his defensive coordinator. He is running that defense. And right now, he is earning the head coaching job of the Chicago Bears. A lot of football left. But right now, I would say he's earned the job as the Chicago Bears head coach through 5 games. Now, I also want to say, first in fumbles, the Bears defense. Second in pass TDs allowed. They're not letting teams throw touchdowns on them. Third in INTs. 5th in total points allowed. This is a top 5 defense. 8th in sacks. And only 32 second half points allowed so far in 5 games this year. That's incredible. That's incredible. And what we're seeing is, again, if the offensive line, which is getting better, Bill Murray, Pryor playing football, Darnell Wright having a much more improved game, Braxton Jones still frustrating on the left tackle spot. But again, as long as the Bears offensive line is average, Caleb is balling out. He's balling out, but behind this average offensive line when he has time to throw. I still want to see, I'm going to be nitpicky. I love the DJ Moore connection. The 2 touchdown throws were incredible throws.
Yeah.
I love that he gets Cole Kmet and Rome Odunze involved. There's still a complete disconnect with Keenan Allen. Him and Keenan Allen are not. So eventually that will crack. And when it does, I hope it happens in a game like this game coming up against the Jags in London. Because then they'll steal a game. The Bears will win a game they're not supposed to win, the Keenan Allen game. I hope it's this game because this is a really important game for them to get to 4-2 going into their bye. Dan, I love the Bears are already in London. They got into London 24 hours ago. Love they did the right thing. So many teams don't leave until Thursday. The Bears left Monday morning. Get on the goddamn plane. Let's go to London. Let's win a football game. Love that. Love that. Love that. Bear down, positive vibes all around. They're number 10 in my power rankings here on the For Frequency's Sake power rankings.
Yeah, no, well deserved. They're playing good football. You mentioned it that an elite defense in the league, and then this offense is slowly but surely coming along and getting better and better each week. And Caleb Williams, are starting to see why he was the number 1 overall pick.
Can I say I love that Jane Daniels is playing really well because so much like right now they're talking Jane Daniels MVP. Which I love, by the way. He's been incredible.
Yeah. It is deserved so far.
It's taking so much attention and pressure off. You have to almost force Caleb Williams into the conversation. And when you do, you look at his numbers, especially over the last 2 games, you go, oh shit, he's actually playing top 10 quarterback football over the last 3 games. Yeah. And it's like, oh yeah, just keep that on the down low. Let's just keep that on the down low.
Exactly.
And, And he
keep flying under the radar.
He'll fly under the radar this weekend because if he balls out in a win against the Jaguars, it's the London game. It's early. It'll get buried by the middle by 2 p.m. Central Time. it'll be a distant memory. And so I love that. And a really important week for the Bears this week.
All right, continuing on. By the way, teams on a bye this week were the Lions, Titans, Eagles, and Chargers. We'll go to the Dolphins beating the Patriots 15-10, which brings us, nothing exciting about this game at all, but it does bring us to the discussion of Drake May being announced as the starter now for this upcoming week against the Texans. Head coach Gerard Mayo saying that he's going to get the nod. And so we have the rookie, number 3 overall pick, getting his first NFL action here in week 5 against Houston. Mark, I've been clear about this from the start. I think one of the few situations in the NFL over the last couple of years that I thought would be the most beneficial to sit their rookie quarterback was the Patriots with Drake May. Not only was he raw and young and not having as much experience in a pro style system, but he's also going to a organization that is, without much talent across the board with the new staff. There were a lot working against him. And I really don't like this move now because you're doing it against Houston this upcoming week, who has had their way with quarterbacks so far this year on the defensive side of the ball. They, and brought some issues there for Caleb Williams just a couple weeks ago.
Blitzed the hell out of Caleb Williams.
Yeah. I mean, this is a baptism by fire if I've ever seen one, and it just doesn't feel great, especially because it feels like, hey, come save our season type of moment. I don't like that feeling one bit for Drake May, but we'll see. Maybe he'll ball out and we'll all be looking foolish, but not crazy about the spot in which they're choosing to do this right now.
That's a great point. So my note for this game, and I really want to just quickly say it, the Dolphins stay afloat. And that's, listen.
Yeah, it's important.
When you see the rest of the AFC right now, the AFC is kind of struggling. The Jets are struggling. The Bills are struggling. Obviously, we know that New England's basically out of it. The Bengals are struggling. Your Steelers have now lost 2 in a row. No one in the AFC South, except for the Texans, look like a legit playoff team. So you have like division leaders, and then it's like the whole wild card is completely up for grabs in the AFC right now. And I don't feel confident about a lot of teams. So a win for Miami like this totally keeps them afloat in another week where they knew they weren't going to have Tua because of IR. So good for them to get that win in Foxborough. When New England, if you watch parts of this game, New England, they fought. I mean, they really were the better team for large swaths of the game. So I'll say this about the Drake May move. You covered a lot of it. I'll just add this. I think there's 2 reasons why the move was made. Jaden, Caleb, and Bo Nix now, 5 weeks in, you can all say are playing solid football. Like Bo Nix now just had his best game as a rookie. Caleb Williams is now on a 2.5 game absolute fire streak. And then Jane Daniels, you can argue, is the NFC player of the year right now. Is the MVP? I don't know, but he's the NFC player of the year right now. Even though he had a down game and his passer rating came back down to earth, completion percentage came back down to earth, but a win still. So, and he ran the football a ton. We'll get to that in a second. So I think there's that, right? If you're Robert Kraft, you're looking around and going, wait a minute. Okay, Bo Nix is now winning 3 games and progressing. So
yeah.
Caleb Williams is playing behind an offensive line that can't be much better than what New England has. So let's go. I'll say this. Drake May is a big guy. He's a strong guy. I don't think he's going to get killed. I think it's over-exaggerated to getting him killed. They have 2 solid tight ends, and they have a really good running back in New England. So lean on that. Help the kid out. What are you talking about? The young quarterback, what you need to do? You have a good offensive line. They don't have that. But they have the 2 and 3 next most important things, a running back and 2 tight ends. So they can lean on that if you're New England. And I think the other reason why they're starting him is because, Dan, the NFL is different from every other sport in the sense that ball don't lie in the locker room. And you are risking your health. You're risking your career. And all the reports are to practices that Drake May is just better. He's just better. And these are grown men who can sit there and go, why the fuck?
Yeah, they know that. Yeah, exactly.
Are we throwing out Brissett again when this kid can ball? I expect New England to be a live underdog against Houston. I think they come out playing with passion, excitement. I think this is going to be The locker room is fired up. Did they get their guy? Did the guy that they think gives them a better chance to win is playing football? Will they win the game against the Texans? I don't know. But it certainly feels like they could steal a game here. And then we'll see how the rest of the season plays out. I expect him to have a 5-game slump, kind of like the other rookie quarterbacks have had this like real learning curve. Maybe not Jaden, but for Caleb and 2.5-game slump, and for for Bo Nix like a 4-game slump. I'd expect him to be somewhere around that 2 or 3 games of ugliness, and then who knows, by December, Drake Maye I expect to be playing solid football. We both liked him a ton coming out of college. He's big, he's strong, he can make all the throws, and let's see the kid play. I'm excited.
I am excited to watch it. So that much is for sure. And he's got a rocket arm, so maybe they can open up this offense a little bit and start being a little bit more competitive from that aspect. The Browns fall to 1-4, so we got 2 1-4 teams in the AFC North. Didn't expect that to happen before the season started. The Commanders went 34-13, an absolute rout. You mentioned it, Jaden Daniels passing not so prolific in this one, 14-25 for 238 yards, touchdown and an interception, but he did have 82 yards on the ground and a in command of the offense throughout this game, convincing fashion for sure. Meanwhile, the Browns continue to struggle. And it's not just with the erratic play of Deshaun. It's the whole offense is completely out of sync. They just can't. They just cannot get rhythm going. They're having bad penalties taken. They've got 12 men in the huddle, in a key spot in the game. It's just constant. I honestly do think it's we talked about addition by subtraction several times. It really does feel like this locker room is not, intact. This locker room doesn't feel like they want to rally around Deshaun, and their head coach is just trying to have to keep rallying the troops and try and keep this thing together, and it's just not working.
And it sucks because now you have Stefanski going out in a press conference, I think even today, reiterated hey, we're standing by Deshaun. It's not just him. It's we all need to be better. That's not Stefanski. That it's got to be, again, that he deserves a raise and an extension for fucking carrying out that message, right? The Browns are dysfunctional ownership. Jimmy Haslam. It's well, you owe him for carrying the water, because eventually, at what point do you as the coach have a breaking point? You go, if we were to cut this dude right now, I guarantee we could go on a 5-game win streak. As you're about to get Nick Chubb.
They just kept Joe Flacco. I mean, this team would be looking pretty good right now.
You're about to get Nick Chubb back, and it's just a vibes. It's a vibes thing. It's a huge thing in an NFL locker room. We just talked about it with Drake Maye. I'll just say this though, Washington. What's really surprised me about Washington is not that Jane Daniels is playing well. Obviously, it's surprised us all that he's this good this soon. But what's surprising is Washington was one of those teams where we thought, hey, they got Terry McLaurin, but their defense is eh. And yes, I'm sure that the addition of a good defensive head coach will change some of that stuff with Dan Quinn coming. But similar to Eberflus, where it's it's going to take time. It's going to take players. They're going to need to go get a Montez Sweat. Funny, because they just traded a Montez Sweat, right? But Dan Quinn has turned this defense around quickly in season. They're way better defense now than they were week 1. And the line of scrimmage, the Commanders are dominating the line of scrimmage. They ran the ball. I mean, they just shoved the ball down the throats of the Cleveland Browns. I wrote it down here. 34 carries, 215 yards, 3 touchdowns. Now, their leading rusher was Jaden Daniels with 11 carries and 80-something yards. But that's still dominating the line of scrimmage and imposing your will. And Dan, we both know a run game like that eats up time. You dominate time of possession. And then it forces a team like Cleveland, who's dysfunctional offensively already right now, to have to throw the ball, and it makes it even uglier. Washington has a recipe for success right now, and kudos to Commanders fans. I feel akin to them as well. They've been through quarterback purgatory in hell, and I think Jets fans are wishing that their owner would sell and they'd get new, good, clean ownership in like that Washington has, because it is completely it's sunshine and rainbows in the DC metro area, and it hasn't been that way for a long, long time.
It's a great, great story to start the year. No question about it. Another potential tide turning for a season, that is William Trevor Lawrence on his birthday.
Is he really William?
His first name's William. Yep.
Good old Bill Lawrence.
His middle name is Trevor, and he's always gone by Trevor. It's just like Dak, it's Rayford. His name, Dak Prescott's name is
right.
Rayford. There's a couple interesting ones.
Rayford
Deshaun Watson, I think that's not his name either. I can't remember but
Pervert Watson.
There's actually
Pervert
a funny
Deshaun
number.
Watson.
Yeah. 37-34. Close win, but it's a win nonetheless.
It's a win.
I mean, the Jaguars just needed to find a way to get a victory. They get it at home. Trevor, actually, I thought he looked pretty good this game overall. Like, definitely much more confident. 28-34, 371 yards. Like, I really think Brian Thomas is a bona fide number one. That Trevor really hasn't had. I mean, Calvin Ridley wasn't as dominant as we expected. He was very sporadic. Christian
Tank
Kirk
Bigsby
is much better out of a slot. And Tank Bigsby looks like the better running back there in Jacksonville. So a lot's maybe starting to click here for this team. Not going to overreact. It is the Indianapolis Colts, after all, who are 2-3 at this point. But it's a division opponent. And to get your first win of the season, you'd like it against a division opponent. And maybe start to get some good juju coming through Jacksonville.
Yeah, Trevor stepped up. And that's what I wrote down. And yeah, he really was fantastic. We said it last week. I need Trevor to put the cape on. He put the cape on. He willed his team to a victory. I loved him getting into a fight with Gabe Davis on the sideline too. Like, we hadn't seen that from Trevor, like the passion.
Yeah.
So I ask now, I think for Jags fans, you have to wonder, is this the dam breaking, right? Are they now going to go on a run? Or was this just a flash in the pan, and now that the release, it's like that zit and they popped it, that they're going to go back to just being a, subpar team? And as a Bears fan, I hope it's the latter, right? Because they're playing the Bears in London. And I'm so glad they won this game. I think the Bears have a better chance to win now because the Jags won. I know that's weird, but it is true. We just know. We've watched enough football.
Yeah, the monkey's off the back. Maybe they're going to relax a little bit. Yeah.
And so, listen, I think this, as far as the Colts go, if you're a Colts fan, you have to go back to Anthony Richardson, because you've got to this is the year where you've got to, by the end of the year, know, is he our quarterback or is he not? Now, you're probably going to start him again next year, no matter what. But it's next year. It's more like we're not tied to him, right? We'll have this decision, kind of like with the Justin Fields year 3, where it's like, fine, go win it or go lose it, but no matter what, we're free of you, or we're all in on you. It's now you hold your own fate. It still feels like the Colts owe him the benefit of the doubt at this point in time. But obviously Flacco's one of the top 20 starting quarterbacks in the NFL right now. And if you're the Colts, you're not going to trade him because Anthony Richardson is historically unhealthy. And so at some point in time, though, I wonder if they'll get offered enough. What kind of pick? A 4th rounder? Would that make you say, screw it, we got to let him go for a 4th rounder? That's such an asset. But it sucks because I just want to watch Joe Flacco play football, and we're not going to get to consistently do that. Big win for the Jags.
No doubt. We did talk about the Texans winning 23-20 over the Bills. I will just add that Buffalo mismanaged that final drive so incredibly bad that it blew my mind. 3 straight passes, take no time off the clock, and then obviously the Texans end up just getting right there within field goal range.
Can I say this? I'm one of the few people that is not killing them for that. And I'm not going to argue. And I'll just give you my opinion. I'm not going to argue right or wrong, right? Yes, Josh Allen was struggling. And yes, he was probably violently concussed. But he's your best player. And you're so backed up. If you get first downs and you are aggressive there, you can play that 4-minute offense and win and maybe go and win the game, right? Like, I know that running the ball 3 times helps your chances of going to overtime, but does it really help your chances of winning the game? The Buffalo Bills said, we're going to put the ball in Josh Allen's hands, and we're going to try and go get some first downs, and we're going to go try and win this fucking game.
I mean, that would have made sense to me if they were at the 10-yard line, but just run the ball to get room, get some room. I mean,
I would agree. Probably the first play should have been a run
or a quick pass. They did like 3 deep shots, basically.
I know.
It's like,
I know.
dude, do some like quick passing game then or something. I don't know.
And so I'm not killing them for that. I agree that you're right. I'm not saying I'm right. That's why I'm not arguing it.
Yeah,
but I'm
you
not
can just see
I'm not killing them for that. In the analytics modern world of football, I don't love my coach going, we really wanted to get to overtime. We saw what happened to the Bucks. They got to overtime. They didn't get the ball and they lost. Which again, I think is the right rule, by the way, for the regular season. I still think that's the right rule. Touchdown should end it. Just get the game over with. But like, you have Josh Allen, second best quarterback in the league. Go freaking win that game. He couldn't do it, and it's probably because he was violently concussed. And I would argue if the concussion protocol worked, Mitch Trubisky would have been in, and they would have ran the ball 3 times. And God only knows, then maybe it does work out in their favor. So,
Fair enough. All right, maybe we can lightning round these next 6 games.
Yeah, we got a couple for sure.
All right, Broncos win 34-18 over the Raiders. Big news out of here was that, Patrick Surtain had 2 picks. Bo Nix looked much more competent. And the Raiders, Antonio Pierce is now saying that he's still evaluating whether or not they're going to start Gardner Minshew or Aiden O'Connell moving forward. Bonkers.
They're in a tough spot. I mean, we knew this with the Raiders. We knew they were the only team going the season that desperately needed a starting quarterback. We agree that Gardner Minshew is a good quarterback. Problem with Gardner Minshew, he's just not a 16-game starter. Like, he's just not the guy for that. So the magic runs out on Gardner, and then he'll pick it back up. If you bench Gardner and then go back to him later in the season, he'll give you a magical run.
Yeah, he's a surge.
So it's probably the way they should do it, right? If their goal is to win a ton of games. If their goal is to lose games and to get a good pick, I would ride with Gardner and just keep going along this road, right? Because Aiden O'Connell is not fun. Like, Gardner is at least fun. Aiden O'Connell is not fun. My notes for this game was Patrick Surtain, elite. Bo Nix, best game. I've been the most critical of Bo Nix. I give it to him and Sean Payton. They had a solid game plan for this game. He made the throws he definitely needed to make, and this was his best game. And you like to see that growth. Again, I question the ceiling. I question the decision. I got to stop bringing that up, though. I'll just talk about the football that he was played. This was his best game.
Yeah, it definitely was. And Aiden O'Connell, to me, always looks like a slightly athletic Farva from Super Troopers. That's who he reminds me of every time I see him out there on the field.
He's Carl Ramrod. He's a leader.
I don't want a large Farva.
Dude, I will say, big Kamala fan, AOC there.
Oh, yeah,
AOC.
For sure.
Big
Absolutely. All right, the Cardinals beat the San Francisco 49ers 24-23. This was my second potential worst loss of the week. The 49ers dropping this one by a point. Now, it was a really close game. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey, he's going to be hurt for at least what seems to be potentially another 3 weeks or so at a minimum at this point. Not entirely sure what's going on there. Wasn't Brock Purdy's best day at the office, that's for sure. 2 interceptions, 2 bad interceptions.
I'm not paying him $60 million. I'll pay him 40, but I'm not paying 60.
But we did talk about Brandon Ayuk, being unleashed, and this was the game for Brandon Ayuk. That's for sure. 8 catches, 147 for him. But really, this was more about the Cardinals to me, being the feisty team that we thought they would be, being better than I think maybe a lot of people gave them credit for. And I think so far the Jonathan Gannon-led Cardinals are doing fine. I mean, I know they're 2-3, but I didn't expect them to be anything more than this. And to get a win against the 49ers, regardless of who they had at their disposal, I thought it was a good job all around. And I think Kyler Murray's the real deal.
It wasn't in my top 2 worst losses. It was a considerable top win. The Cardinals, again, I challenged them. If you remember last week, I said, hey, listen, Nick Gannon, your defensive head coach, it gave up a ton of points last week. They went on the road against San Francisco, and they only let up 23 points in San Francisco. Dan, at halftime, this game was 23-10. The Cardinals won it 24-23. I want to read you these are the drives by the 49ers in the second half. 4 plays interception, 11 plays downs, 8 plays fumble, 2 plays interception.
Yeah. 3 turnovers and 4 drives.
They have beaten on the year I have it written down. The 49ers have beaten where did it go? The 49ers have beaten the Jets, the Jets, and the Patriots. They have lost to the Vikings, the Rams, the Cardinals. Their wins are against the Jets and the Patriots.
Yeah, and two AFC or NFC West losses as well. So
I said at the beginning of the year I was down on the Niners this year. I've been predicting the doom for a couple of years now, and I stuck on that bandwagon. Dan, this feels different. Christian McCaffrey is not ready to come back, and let's be honest. If you have to make a decision on Brock Purdy at the end of the year, this loss has to be taken into account. If I was John Lynch and I was Kyle Shanahan, I'd look around and be like, we can draft another guy in the 7th round and not pay him any money, and we may be better off than just than paying this dude $50+ million. Because right now, it does not look like a $50 million quarterback when you need him to step up and to just get a field goal in the second half. I read you the drives; it was ugly.
Yeah, that was really bad. The Packers go on the road and beat the LA Rams. Rams now mark 1-4. Maybe this was to be expected with the loss of Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua.
They are so injured. They need the bye. They're in their bye week this week brutal. Now. They needed it.
Came at the perfect time for the Rams. Yeah. That's for sure. Meanwhile, the Packers now 3-2. I honestly kind of like forgot about the Packers as a team, which is like over the last like week and a half. I don't know. Yeah. It's just but no, I mean they looked all right. They look decent. I just kind of feel lukewarm about the Packers still.
Yes.
And
they survived.
That's just they're just around.
That's the word. They survived. That's what I wrote. Packers survived. He had a Will Levis type interception, Jordan Love. It was hilarious. It was so ugly. It was so bad. Yeah. And credit to him. He played really good then there on out and battled back in this game. Listen, the Rams, they're not dead yet because as we just talked about the Niners, no one is running away with the NFC West. We talked about the fact
that much is true.
The Seattle has a gauntlet coming up. The Rams can hopefully get guys back. And I think they'll be feisty. I think they'll be really feisty for the rest of the year, and they're not going to lay over and die. They're in it to win games. They don't care about draft position, draft picks. Can I say this about the Packers? The Romeo Doubs story got really brushed under the rug. We don't know exactly what happened, but when you have to suspend one of your really, really great young playmakers for conduct detrimental to the team, and you're not really releasing what exactly happened, that's not good. But credit to the Packers for being a strong enough backbone organization to do that. But certainly a concern, Dan. It's certainly a concern.
It's weird. Yeah, it's definitely weird. We've seen it happen with other teams in previous years across the league and across other leagues where it's just you don't like an unexpected cut happens because of murky situations. But yeah, it's interesting for sure. I know LaFleur came out and said that he had to talk with Dobbs and stuff about everything, but they're not releasing
about the things.
So it's
just what are the things?
Yeah.
It feels very reminiscent of the Bears defensive coordinator last year having the FBI raid his house.
Yeah.
And then there's kind of like, we never know what happened. It's like, what happened with Romeo Doubs?
Never understood. Yeah. The Giants won over the Seahawks. We talked about that game. Yeah. We'll get to the Cowboys now, beating the Steelers 20-17 on Sunday Night Football. Overall, it was, obviously a disappointing game from my perspective as a Steelers fan because this was about as teed up for you as possible. It's a Sunday night game. It's at home. Mike Tomlin usually, performs really well on prime time. Your offense was starting to get some rhythm going, even though you had lost the week before. It looked good in the potential comeback. And this was kind of a stinker. I mean, not only did the defense kind of let the Cowboys' Rico Dowdle run all over them in the fourth quarter, but the offense just, laid flat for way too much of this game. 2 second half touchdowns, but not enough, not near enough to overcome the deficit that they put themselves in early on. Not to mention, this came with, 2 big turnovers from the defense in this game, and it was still this close. Really disappointing all around, to be honest. And it just made me think, Mark, that this is kind of just what we have to live with Mike Tomlin. And I honestly believe he doesn't ever want to win games by blowing out teams. He just doesn't want to do it. I swear. I honestly think he gets some sort of pride out of winning games ugly ways all the time. I think he loves it. I think that's like his jam, and it sucks. That pisses me off. One of the radio guys on 97 The Fan put it well. He just said that there's something that Mike Tomlin can't help himself but to put himself in the mud and drag out wins with any team that they get into a stadium with. When in reality, in a situation like this, without Micah Parsons, without Dexter Lawrence, without their then third string defensive end early in the game, and with injured offensive linemen, this is the opportunity where you put your foot on the throat and you blow out these teams.
Yeah.
You make a statement win, and instead your team ends up lowering itself down to that, level. And granted, the Steelers were hurt in this game too. They were down to their, third and fourth string outside linebackers aside from TJ Watt and offensive line injuries too. But just, it is getting upsetting. I put this, as bad as the defense did perform, if you're going to put all of your money and eggs into the defense, you can't give up a drive like you did at the end of the game there, 16 plays and a touchdown. They still only gave up 20 points at the end of the day. And so for that, I'm like, this lays at the feet of the offense and it lays at the feet of Tomlin at the end of the day. And that's really how I feel about it. I think they're putting way too much restriction on Justin Fields. They're playing it too coy with him. I think that they have opened up things a little bit over the last couple of weeks, but not nearly enough. They need to take more deep shots, and they need to let Justin play more freely. And I fear that now, on the heels of 2 losses, we may see Russell Wilson enter the picture, because I think that's kind of what Tomlin wanted all along, to be honest. Tomlin wanted this team to be Russell Wilson's team. And I just fear that because they
sabotage.
Yeah, it's, he's not doing it on purpose, but it's just that I truly think that he thinks, well, Justin's too young, and he's not the leader that this team needs on offense, and we're not going to really, Justin can't make checks at the line. Do you know that? He doesn't have the freedom to check out of a run. What are we doing? He's not a rookie. Yeah. And I guarantee if Russell Wilson goes in, he will have the freedom to do that. And so I don't like that dynamic.
When you look at what was so interesting to me about this game is there's 2 things to look at, right? Look at the first drive of the first half of the Steelers. When they got the ball for the first time, they were down 3-0 after giving up a field goal to Dallas, right? So they get the ball, they're down 3-0. You go 11 plays, you control the ball, 5 minutes off the clock, 52 yards, you get a field goal. All right, we're alive.
Yeah, it's fine.
After that, the rest of the first half, 3 plays punt, 3 plays punt, 9 plays punt, after only 21 yards, 9 plays punt, and then end of half. So on the script, first drive, boom, march down the field, you get points. On the script to start the second half, the Steelers come out, they get the ball, they're down 6-3. 6 plays, 72 yards. It looked explosive. They moved the ball. 3 minutes, touchdown. You're up 10-6. Let's go. We're finding our groove. Then what happens? Next time the Steelers get the ball, 4 plays, punt. Next time the Steelers then they give up a touchdown. They're down 13-10. Next time they get the ball, 3 plays, 5 yards, 57 seconds, punt. So you have 5, 6 if you count it with the one at the end of the half, which, you had 52 seconds to get down and score. So I'm going to count it. You had 6 drives that were literally barely anything and a punt. And people want to get mad at the defense for giving up the touchdowns late, right? Dallas, meanwhile, late in the game, 16-play, 90-yard, 8-minute touchdown drive, and a 15-play, 70-yard, 5-minute touchdown drive. So your defense, who had to go out there 6 times after getting stops and only had 50-second breaks because of the conservative play calling and the punts.
Best friend is the offense.
But eventually, yes, it's not shocking to me at all that at the end of the day, at the late in the fourth quarter, Dallas has figured some stuff out and they go on drives and the defense is gassed and they give up touchdowns. You have got to let this offense just be explosive and make plays and be more aggressive. I'm with you 100%. I love Justin. I think Justin, we know who he is. He's a guy who thrives under just making plays. Let's go make plays. They only had 6 rushes for Justin Fields. Jayden Daniels rushed the ball 11 times. Jayden Daniels is your franchise quarterback. You invested a 2nd overall pick in him. Justin Fields, you're not investing anything in him. Run him into the ground. Like, let's go win some games. And if he eventually can't be your starter long-term, but he helps you win games now with a win-now defense, that's what you have to do. Be aggressive. Get aggressive on offense. I was so frustrated watching this game that they weren't doing more on offense. They weren't being more aggressive on offense. And I'll say, Dan...
And they're not dialing up targets to Pickens and Freiermuth. They're 2 best players.
Yeah, and you have a little bit of a Pickens attitude problem. I watched some of the scripts online about what is Pickens doing on this route.
Did you see his eye black?
Yeah, it's not great.
It's not great.
So good, solid win for the Cowboys, right? Because I expected them to lose this game. So solid win for the Cowboys. They stole this game in Pittsburgh, mainly because Pittsburgh offensively played like they were trying not to lose.
Yeah, that was the most frustrating part of it, I think, is that, they didn't do the things that they could have done to put themselves in position to win this game. And it ended up being 3 points at the end, but it's too little too late for this Pittsburgh Steelers offense. Got to start faster. That's it. You have to start faster in this league. And too often they are scoring 3 points in the first quarter. All right, we'll wrap things up here from week 5 with the Chiefs against the Saints, 26-13 win for Patrick Mahomes and company. How about this, Mark? A blast from the past in this game. This is courtesy of Benjamin Solak on X. Juju Smith-Schuster's 130 receiving yards was the most he's had since 2020, since the 2020 season. The wild card game in early 2021. That was 1,366 days ago. And Kareem Hunt's 102 yards rushing was the most since 2020, 1,422 days ago, to be exact. So a couple guys drinking out of the fountain of youth for this game. But the Chiefs, it just continued, as it goes to say, they continue to find ways to win regardless of who they have at their disposal.
Hey, Alex Ike is watching. He just messaged me. He said, Dan's just mad he had to stay up late.
That was disappointing. That was very disappointing. I was ready to go to bed. And
shout out to that one Steelers fan though, drinking the Bud Light under the.
That was great.
That was great.
Yeah.
So Dan, I'll say this. I'm beating a dead horse with this take, but it's so true. The Chiefs are becoming hateable, not because of Taylor Swift, not because they're winning too much. They're becoming hateable because we fell in love with the Chiefs because they were the Golden State Warriors. Remember, they became popular and won their first Super Bowl when you had KD and the Warriors, and it was just like, holy crap, they are unstoppable. 50 touchdowns, Patrick Mahomes. They are now the Detroit Bad Boy Pistons. And we hate the Detroit Bad Boy Pistons.
Yeah,
they are just
bully ball, man.
Mauling you with defense. And then it's like, oh, their offense is so devoid of star talent or past their prime talent in Kelsey. But it's like, oh, yeah, but they have the best quarterback on the planet. And so even though Mahomes, 6 touchdown passes, 6 interceptions on the season through 5 games, 6 touchdown passes, 6 interceptions. They're 5-0. That is maddening. It's maddening.
Yeah. That's why this team is going to three-peat.
Dan, they took Kareem Hunt off the street. He had 100 yards rushing on 20-something carries. No other team in the NFL, not even the Niners and the brilliant Kyle Shanahan does that. Yeah. No other team does that.
No, it's incredible.
The only thing that's close to that is we see is like Sean McVay taking Baker off the street 2 years ago and being like, in 2 days we win a football game on Thursday Night Football.
Yeah. Yeah, and
he might be the only coach that can hold a candle to Andy Reid, just being like, "Yeah, I don't care. Give me whoever. They'll be fine."
You don't have a fan for that Pistons message, by the way. So
yeah, Bill Lambier. It's a message. Yeah, that's hilarious. Alex, thanks for watching, bud. Alex, listen, it's maddening. I hate the Chiefs because of the way they're winning football games. I want to turn on the Chiefs on Monday Night Football, and I want to see Mahomes throw for 500 yards and 5 touchdowns and be like, GOAT. Instead, we're getting gritty wins, and it's just like, this is annoying.
Tom Brady and the Patriots did that for so many years,
and that's why it's annoying, because we know, we've seen this before. We know as football fans, we're going, they're the best team in the NFL. Like, they're unbeatable. Yeah. You can say, listen, we can beat this team because maybe Mahomes has an off day and they can't score 30, and so you can beat them. No. If they don't score, they haven't scored 30 once this year, and they're 5-0. It's maddening.
Exactly.
I'll say this about the Saints: 2-0 to 2-3, and now Derek Carr's going to miss some time. Hey, Derek Carr's not your long-term quarterback, right? We knew when he signed his deal was basically a 2-year deal, so you're free of Derek Carr after this year. Derek Carr's not the problem in New Orleans right now, but you're going to get a look at Spencer Rattler for a couple games, so that's fun. That's fun,
sure.
Right?
Yeah. See what you got.
Can I quickly just ask you before we leave? I just want to I wanted to do this as kind of a new segment I'm springing on you and it's mainly because I saw this graphic and I was like, oh, that's wild. We have an interesting week 6 ahead of us, Dan. There is only one game with a spread over 7 points next week. And it is a team that is favored by 8.5. They are at home. Do you have any guesses? Can you look at the schedule?
Who that favored team is?
Can you look at the schedule without seeing the odds somewhere? Because so go to ESPN and click on schedule. Don't click on scores, because the scores will show you the ESPN bet. Now, this is from FanDuel. Shout out FanDuel. I only use FanDuel.
All right, I'm looking on there right now. Let's see here.
Hashtag kick a destiny.
So there's one team that's favored by 8.
One team is favored by 8.5 as of this morning on FanDuel. At home. They're at home.
There's one of the home teams here. I mean, I guess my guess would be this home team would be Baltimore.
So they're playing the Commanders at home, which is like a home team for both games because they're 60 miles away.
That's true. Yeah.
You are close. They have the 3rd highest spread. They are favored by 6.5, which I would hammer Washington. Washington's getting 6.5. I think Washington keeps that close. Any other guesses?
Green Bay?
Green Bay. Let's see. Where do they? Oh, they're favored by 5.5.
Maybe it's Philly.
Maybe it's Philly.
Okay. It's because they're playing the Browns. Yeah.
Philly's favored 8.5 against Cleveland. They have Cleveland home. I don't love the Browns, but that is one of those you're like, do I trust Philly to cover 8.5?
Yeah.
It's interesting.
I know that's
the Texans. Now the Texans are favored by 7, but they're on the road.
For sure.
Which if I can get Drake May at +7, I might take it. I told you.
That'd be fun. At least you can enjoy
betting on that. I think they're going to be hyped up. I really do.
Yeah.
So there you go.
It'll be a very interesting week 6 ahead for us.
That's my biggest line of the week next week.
Heck yeah. All right. I love it. Well, that'll do it for the week 5 recap and all of that crazy news that came out this week as well. We'll get back at it next week with our week 6 recap, talking some Drake May, talking the new look New York Jets, and plenty more coming up in week 6.
This has been a For Frequency's Sake Podcast Network production. For more great content, This has been a For Frequency's Sake Podcast Network production. For more great content, subscribe to For Frequency's Sake on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter.